presentation is going to be. There it goes. So you just do need to actively hit the got it, or you will be kicked out automatically by Zoom. So make sure you're just hitting that got it. So we do just always start off all of our presentations with reminding everyone this is general information. It is not constructed specifically for one industry or one person. So while you're listening to the feedback and we're going through the conversations today, keep in mind that depending on your industry, size of your business, some of these things you might need to alter a little bit. But we do also like to have them be interactive. So feel free, if as we're going along, you have feedback or questions, definitely join in. Those of you that have attended my seminars and sessions before, I like to be super interactive. So don't hesitate to chime in or drop a comment in the chat. A little bit quickly about who we are. So BlueLion is an HR consulting company. We cover Southern New Hampshire, well, most of New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Southern Maine. This is our team a year and a half ago. We now have 12 staff on our team. So we are also growing greatly. We help focus on helping companies that need outsourced HR. So we do everything from writing policy all the way up to fully outsourced HR. Teeny bit about me. I am one of the co-founders and owners of BlueLion. I do have my master's in business. I am SHRM SCP certified. I do enjoy hiking. I have my puppy Kona. We love going up to our second house in Maine and going snowmobiling or snow machining, as it's been called lately several times, and mountain biking. All right, let's get right into it. We have a lot to cover. And Heather, correct me, I believe this is an hour and a half, question mark, hour and a half. Feel free to interrupt me so I stay on time. We have a lot to cover. Again, we are going to be talking about building a strong recruiting process and strong recruiting capabilities. One of the things I kind of wanted to start off with was defining the difference between hiring and recruiting. If you're currently posting a job in Indeed, doing your interviewing and hiring a candidate, you're doing what's called hiring. You're not really recruiting. When you look into doing a recruiting program, you're more working on the entire business. And it's really a constant evolution that's going on. It's not something that you just do when you're hiring. You actually, and you'll see through the presentation today, this is something that takes a lot more movement and a lot more strategy than just posting and hiring. So why do we want a strong recruiting program? Well, I would say quick show of hands, but I'm sure everyone would have their hand up that we're having struggles with the current labor pool and actually filling positions. So it's becoming more of a challenge for companies to get that talent that they need in the door. And obviously when we have them, we want to make sure we're retaining them. So we're not having to go hire again. Having a good recruiting program is going to help support that in your business. So you're not constantly having to hire. Instead, you're going to start recruiting. You get better talented individuals when you do recruiting versus hiring. You're hiring more people that have the same like mind as your business or the same values and principles. And when you're aligning your business's values and principles with your employees, it's a longer relationship. They also can help take your business to the next level. So they help you grow your business because you're aligned on many levels, and it's not just a job. It's a career, it's a profession, it's a, they're part of the team. Also through recruiting and having a recruiting program, you're actually connecting with professionals before you have to hire them, before you even have an opening. So when it does come time to fill those openings, you actually have people to pick from rather than seeing what comes off of Indeed. And I will say Indeed a lot today, but it is a great platform if it's used properly. So I'm not in any way trashing Indeed. So ATS, what does that mean? That is an applicant tracking system. One of the recommendations we would have is establishing and utilizing an applicant tracking system to ensure that as candidates are flowing through your process, whether they're coming from Indeed, ZipRecruiter, off your social media, through internal referrals, however they're getting into you, that you are tracking them and starting to really look at where they're coming from. You're also allows for a lot of automation with communication, which is great. We're going to talk about that a little later, how important it is to be in communication with candidates through the hiring process. You also have the ability in these applicant tracking systems to not just track quantity, but also quality. So you may find you post an ad on Indeed and you're getting 100 applicants. But then when you start using an applicant tracking system, you may find out after filling 4 positions that every single person you hired came from LinkedIn, where you only had 4 or 5 applicants. Well, 4 or 5 applicants, but that's where all of our good candidates are coming from. I might not invest as much time in Indeed as a platform, and maybe I'm going to increase my usage of LinkedIn. So these type of systems really help you to gauge where stuff is coming and the quality of the stuff that you're getting. Effective job postings. Super important when you're posting a position that it is accurately reflecting the job that you're going to have, having filled. But it's also super important not to overcomplicate it. I do want to definitely specify right now, there is a difference between your job description and your job posting. Your job posting should be a subset and an excerpt from your job description. I do not recommend taking a job description and including that with a job posting. There's a lot of information that's necessary in a job description that is overwhelming and cumbersome for someone looking for your position and looking at their main requirements. Studies actually show that women are only going to apply to positions where they meet 100% of the criteria, where men their bar is only 60%. So if you have 2 applicants looking at your position and they don't meet 100%, you're still going to get the male to respond, but you might not get the female to respond. So it's also by simplifying your job posting and really putting out the requirements and keeping it to the minimum requirements, not all the teeny little bells and whistles, you'll get a bigger pool of candidates applying and a more diverse pool of candidates. Make sure you are including the necessary functions, but possibly leaving off those secondary responsibilities, leaving off that, you're helping them further their career, or, you're going to sign them up for this course. Keep it really specific. You also, in this world today, sound bites. People are looking for bullets. They're not looking to read a paragraph. They don't want a 5-page story about your company. So really simplifying it to catch their attention, but also make sure you're getting effective candidates that have the qualifications necessary to do your job. I think this is funny. So submitting a candidate who only has 3 of the 5 skills you're looking for. So while we want to make sure we're simplifying what we're posting, we do want to make sure that it's still accurate to what we need. So if there's 5 requirements, you really want to make sure those are all included, and you want to be cautious of what you're putting through your pipeline if they're not meeting those 5 requirements. So if there are 5 requirements of the position and you're letting somebody slide through with 3, it becomes very costly to fill those gaps. So this illustration is a great picture of, the rooster. He's got a beak, he's got feathers, and he's a bird, but he doesn't have the long legs. So because he doesn't have the long legs, as an employer, I'm having to make accommodations. I'm having to go out and purchase stilts. I'm having to show him how to use stilts. It's now a hazard. What if he falls off the stilts? When really I should have just hired someone that had long legs to fill that requirement. This is a great one. Beefing up your benefits and, getting creative with your benefit package. A lot of employers we're finding are offering your standard package. So your health, your vision, your dental, your simple IRA or 401k, some retirement plan. A lot of companies are offering short-term, long-term, and life insurance now as pretty standard benefits. So people are having to get creative in what they're offering, and companies are getting creative in order to shine, in order to stand out against the competition, because it is a very competitive market for talent. Here's just some examples: paid paternal leave, volunteer time off, tuition reimbursement. I have seen companies doing tuition reimbursement for future education. I've also seen companies doing a tuition reimbursement for past education. So maybe you're in a field where they have to have, even if it's a trade and they had to go to trade school, maybe you're an accounting firm and they, have their degree in accounting, and going back and helping them pay off some of those loans. We've started to see that in the market space a lot as well. Bereavement leave. So providing time off should they lose someone in their family, pregnancy loss leave, flexible scheduling. Flexible scheduling is becoming way more popular post-COVID. Through COVID, a lot of people did flexible scheduling and they figured out quickly that their company could still run efficiently and effectively, and they had a happier staff. So now in a post-COVID world, you have more and more of the labor pool is requiring a flexible schedule or telecommuting. We have a client that they require everyone to be available and working between the hours of 10 and 2 every day. So it's common core hours, they call it. And other than that, you can work whenever is convenient for you. So they have some people that come in at 10 and then work the rest of their shift. Some people still come in 8 to 5. Some people come in 9 to 4 or whatever. So as long as they're getting their hours in and everyone works those core hours, that way, if you have to have meetings, if you have, company-wide functions, anything's happening during those core hours, that's a good way to allow for that flexible scheduling. And then telecommuting, I believe at this point, everyone's very familiar with telecommuting. And a lot of clients that wanted everyone to come back to the office are doing well, but they've also allowed the flexibility of perhaps it's a 3-2 split. So 3 days in the office, 2 days telecommuting, or vice versa. And a lot of clients are also starting to do shared office space. So maybe you can reduce the size of your footprint for your brick and mortar officing if you're having those split schedules where 2 people can share a desk because they're only there a couple days a week. We at BlueLion do a seminar every year, usually in the fall, around unique benefits. If you want more ideas on ways to beef up your benefit package, definitely go check out our recorded webinar from last fall. We'll be doing another one again this year, but it really gives a lot of ideas on different types of benefits that you could be offering. Pet insurance, there's a whole bunch of different stuff out there. Culture, it's a buzzword that I don't think is going away. It's been around for several years. Company cultures are super, super important when it comes to recruiting. When we're posting ads, when we're recruiting, when we're communicating about our company, we want to make sure we're showcasing the personality of our company, that we are, explaining what it's like to work here. What is the culture like? What are you going to get out of being part of this team? More than ever now in post-COVID, people are looking for good cultures. So one of the trends through COVID is purpose. A lot of people looked at what they were doing in their professional career and decided it was no longer fulfilling them. They didn't feel like they had a purpose. And so they're switching industries, they're switching, career paths. So making sure you have on the forefront of your recruiting what your culture is, what the purpose is, what's your mission, all of that stuff will help people connect. And then again, it's going back to that beginning. Our recruiting is about connecting and making sure we have the same values and the same mission as our staff so we can go longer and further together. So if we're all on the same page and we're all like-minded individuals, we're going to work harder together and make it further. People care about what they do. They care about where they work, and making sure that, again, we're going to keep talking about it, but through this entire process of recruiting, we want to make sure we're showcasing what our culture is. So culture is becoming, like I said, a buzzword. 88% of culture is important. These are all statistics from jobbite.com. 46% say that culture is very important. 32% of people are actually willing to take a 10% pay cut for a better culture. This again is part of the difference between recruiting and hiring. When people are out there in the job market, they're looking oftentimes at multiple offers. So they're having your offer and 2 other companies at the same time. They're not just any longer looking at who's paying me more. They're looking at the culture. They're looking at the different, opportunities for telecommuting. What is the flexibility around scheduling? What are the benefit packages that they're offering? And it's definitely, culture is a huge huge component of that. 15% stated that they turned down an offer because of the culture. So just because they're getting an offer and it may be a better offer, doesn't mean they're taking it if they don't feel that connection to the company and it's not a good fit work environment wise. I think this has become more, and I hate saying this, but since COVID, people want to feel good about where they're going to work. They want to feel welcomed. They want to feel like they have a purpose, but they also want a good working environment where we had the opportunity to be home for a lengthy period of time. We now know when we go and put ourselves back into the world or back into the work environment, we want to make sure we're connecting on a different level. You want to make sure you're enhancing your brand strategy. So this is one of the things where we're talking about an actual recruitment program. So this is not something you can do overnight. This is not, I'm going to go post a job and we got to make sure that the brand matches what I'm trying to advertise. This is a lot going to come from your marketing department is going to be very involved in this. Your ownership needs to be very involved in this, but it's really what is the brand strategy for your business? What messaging are you communicating to the public through your website, through your social media? A lot of your candidates are going to be looking you up. They're going to be looking you up. They're going to be looking at your Google reviews. They're going to be looking at what people are saying about you on Glassdoor, LinkedIn, and a lot of that has to do with branding. Timberland, perfect example. Timberland is a New Hampshire-based company. They have a great brand. They have a brand about giving back to their community. They do the City Year project. All of that is a brand strategy. That's not something that's created overnight. This is a long game. So you want to make sure that your company is invested in the long game. Again, recruiting is a process. It's a program. It's something we're constantly and consistently doing. A lot of business decisions are going to help or hinder your recruiting capabilities. So if your company is not invested in their branding strategy or the message they're putting out into the world, it's going to reduce the effectiveness that you're able to recruit talented individuals and that culture. A lot of this has tying back to the culture. One of my clients is in Nashua, New Hampshire. They're an HVAC company. They have a brand and a reputation that is top notch for customer service. They have over 3,000 reviews on Google. They are 5-star rated. We do not have to post to hire for their positions. We don't post on any, places like Indeed or Craigslist or anything like that. Candidates just come to their website and want to work there. Again, that's a 20-year process that they've worked on building. This wasn't created overnight, but you get your company to a point where candidates are reaching out to you because they want to be part of it. They want to work at a place that has great customer service. They want to work at a place that people are there for 20 and 30 years. And that's all through your brand strategy and really driving home that positive perception. There are companies out there that you can work with marketing companies that will help you on your branding and your reputation, which is something you want to take a look at as you're building out your recruiting process. So it's also on your marketing side and bringing that in. Attending and hosting industry events. So a couple examples of this is things with the chamber. We have the Manchester Young Professionals Network. They have a lot of events. There's other different organizations, but depending on your industry. So there's industry specific organizations like the New Hampshire Restaurant and Food and Lodging. There's New Hampshire Home Builders. They are organizations that support business. But they also have events where employees of businesses will come and do functions and do things. This helping by either hosting or participating and sponsoring these type of events gets your name out into the community. It also gets you out meeting people face to face. So this is where we're going to grow that pool of individuals for the future. So it's not I'm not going to go and host this event and do a chamber event and I'm going to host it at my location and immediately be looking to recruit someone to hire today. But what I want to make sure we're showcasing is our culture, who we are as a company. And I meant to look it up before we jumped on here, but if anyone attended the Manchester Chamber event I think it was last fall, It was at a architectural firm in Bedford, and the name is slipping my mind. Heather, jump on if you remember it. The one thing I remember about that event is how happy and engaged their staff was. So their staff was helping work the event. They were pouring wine, they were serving ice cream, you know, they were helping out with the functions of the event. Here comes Heather, she's going to tell me. What's his name? Is it THM?
You are so close. It was TF Moran.
TF Moran,
right?
So TF Moran did this. They hosted an industry event. Now, it wasn't specific to their industry, but they were able to showcase who they are as a company. I saw their facility. I saw the employees that worked there. I saw the owner of the company. If I have somebody now in their field, I'm comfortable saying, hey, you should go work at that company, or you should see what they have for advertising, you know, for positions open. So this, again, this is your long game. We're thinking about long-term, getting yourself out there and creating that brand and reputation through how, you know, having these style events. Also, depending on your industry, looking into things with colleges and high school, and starting doing some events with them. Maybe it's a career day, you know, maybe participating in some of those things, depending on where you're currently getting your candidates from. If you're hiring direct post-grad, then obviously you want to be working with some colleges, and getting your name and your brand out there. Leaning on your current employees. This also goes back to culture. If you have the type of culture that people want to work there and your employees are excited about coming to work, they're going to want to bring people into that experience. They're going to want to have their friends and family also working there because it's an awesome place. They're also inadvertently in life just going to be talking about your business. So they may be out, you know, out with a group of friends and someone's like, hey, Alison, how's work? And be like, oh my God, it's great. My boss just took us all axe throwing last week because, you know, it was super fun and we do these great things. And I really enjoy going to work. Like, you know, I'm adding to society in this way and doing this meaningful thing, but I really feel like, you know, I'm not just a number. People are going to remember those stories. So having your team being part of your recruiting process is great. Don't be afraid to also ask for it. So if we never ask, we never will get. You'll never know the answer if you don't ask. Having a referral program, so actually giving incentive for them to get a referral or get someone to work there. I do recommend that you have a period of time. So typically you'll see, you know, after 90 days, they might get something. Maybe it's after 6 months, they get something. I have seen it where the referring employee gets it and the new hire. Sometimes it's just a referring employee, but little incentives about getting people and the right people on your team. Also, if your staff is going to be, you know, referring somebody in, you're hopeful that they're at least 90% the way great, because they're going to have to work with your staff. So your staff isn't going to want to refer someone that they're going to have to pick up the slack for, or maybe isn't going to be a good fit for your business. Also, don't be afraid to look internal for hires. It seems like it would be common sense. One thing I find a lot of clients fail at is they answer the question for their employees, or they assume that everyone wants to go up a ladder. There are some people that want to go sideways. So you may have an open position, and if you're not asking everyone internally if they want that, you may never know. A great place to have these conversations is during annual performance appraisals. So when you're in the annual performance appraisal, asking your employees, you know, is there anywhere else in the organization you could see yourself? Do you have any desires to transition departments? And just finding out if the want's there, because if the want is there and you didn't realize it, you could be missing that opportunity to harvest great talent within your organization and then backfilling their position. Make sure that you're trying to meet your elite candidates where they are. So whether we like it or not, things have evolved and people are going to different places. If you have a target market that you're trying to go after, make sure you're conscious of where they're living. Where are they spending their time? So if they're early in their career, so we're talking about the under 30s, they're going to be on social media. They're going to be consistently on social media. Now, they may not be on the Book of Faces. They might be on the TikToks. They might be on the Instagrams. Know where your audience is living and make sure you're capitalizing on those mediums in order to go and capture them. If it's an experienced candidate, they are more likely to be on your traditional job boards. So your Zip recruiters, your Indeed, your Ladder, and also focusing your attention on sourcing tools, are home to professionals in the field. So if you are hiring, let's say it's a medical provider and there's job boards out there specific to medical providers, they're probably going to be on those job boards. So make sure you're keeping in mind the industries you're in. If you're a trades company, there are a lot of job boards out there. On some of the trade schools have job boards. If you're looking for, inexperienced laborers, you might want to be looking at some of the return to work programs. You might be looking at some of the New Hampshire state programs on getting, skilled labor force that way as well. So just make sure you're keeping your mind open about where you're going, but also that you're being very strategic and making sure you're meeting them where they're hanging out. This is my face when a hiring manager thinks that we just hop on LinkedIn and it rains qualified candidates. We have clients come to us often and they're like, you can do recruiting for us, right? And I'm like, I can help you with recruiting, but I do not have a magical box full of all these amazing humans just waiting for me to tell them where to go work. So we did just talk a little bit about social media. This is some statistics that we were able to pull looking at social media by the numbers. So 96% of job seekers are using social media when they're conducting their search. That could be LinkedIn, it could be, Instagram, Facebook. This also doesn't necessarily mean that that's where they're going to apply. It could be that they're going to check out your presence on social media. If you have a social media platform and you're not keeping it up to date, that reflects your business. So making sure that if you are on these platforms as a business, that somebody is maintaining them, that you have good content out there. Back to brand. It's our brand, it's our reputation, it's our culture. If they're hip youngsters and they're all about social and they go look at your website and it's from 1980, they might not feel a good connection. It might be, not a great first impression if they're not getting the look and feel that you care about your appearance on the social and the internet. 49% of professionals follow companies on social media so that they're aware of opportunities. A lot of, I would say between 25 and 45, they're out there following people on LinkedIn, connecting with people on LinkedIn for the sole purpose of monitoring when they have open positions, because again, they've created that branding and that reputation. And this is what we're talking about, that whole management of the life cycle. You're really attracting people in the long term. So when you have an open position, you have candidates that have been waiting for your company to hire so that they could come fill that position. 81% of job seekers want to see job opportunities posted on Facebook. Facebook does postings just like LinkedIn. You can post on Facebook. Definitely, if you're not currently utilizing that, it would be something you would want to look into. Also, keeping in mind, posting jobs in multiple locations is great. Don't feel like you can only post in one. I have also seen a new strategy, which I pity my staff that has to go through all of the resumes, posting the same job on the same platform, but in a different format. So originally we had talked about making sure that your job description and your job posting are really simplified. I've also seen a strategy where I take the same position and I change the job posting and use different verbiage, different words, gear it towards a kind of slightly different person that I'm trying to attract. And I post the same job several times on the same medium. So I'm using Indeed, but I'm posting it 5 different times in hopes that I'm attracting candidates. Remember, it's all about sound bites. People are scrolling through jobs and you've got to catch their attention in 3 seconds. You don't catch their attention in 3 seconds, you've already been scrolled by. So posting it in multiple facets and multiple different using different verbiage does also is very effective. 78% of recruiters expect social media recruiting to keep increasing. That's from JobVite. And nearly 40% of people search for jobs on LinkedIn each week. And that's obviously from LinkedIn. So 40 million people are out there on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I think, is still an up and coming platform. A lot of the smaller businesses are not yet using LinkedIn. A lot of the larger businesses have been using LinkedIn for a while, but I think that gap is closing. More and more companies are going out to get sourcing on LinkedIn. We just had a client, we've been trying to help them fill a position. It was a high level position, very specific niche position. They were having difficulty filling it, posted it on LinkedIn. They didn't get a candidate from LinkedIn. Instead, they got a candidate who knew someone who knew somebody who saw it on LinkedIn. And that's really what LinkedIn does. It helps with the network marketing. It helps with the people in your network looking to help you fill that position versus just posting it out on Indeed. So people live on LinkedIn even when they're not looking for a job. So having the jobs posted where people are also living and doing their daily social media and networking really helps you capitalize on a different market, not just talking to your audience you want to hire, but talking to people who know the audience you're looking to hire. The last thing we're going to talk about here is really going to be going into your interview process and the actual process of hiring. So a lot of what we just focused on was the whole recruiting and how it's part of your branding and your marketing and your messaging and your culture. And, you know, it's about your company. Now we're really getting into, okay, I've posted the ad and I have these candidates. How do I make sure that I'm getting a great candidate, but B, we're also closing the deal? So streamlining your interview process. 20 years ago, an interview process could take a month and that was fine. Interview processes that take a month, unless you're a top level executive at Google making, you know, $3 million a year, you're not hanging around for a month to see if an offer is coming. You want to make sure that you're still vetting and getting the right candidates. So you want to make sure your hiring managers are properly trained and familiar with what they can and cannot say. You want to make sure they have guidelines on best practices. You cannot, there's going to be no surprise, you cannot go in an interview and ask somebody, oh, are you having children this year? Do you plan on having children? That's not an acceptable question. You can't actually ask them if they have children. But there are ways that you can teach your staff and teach your managers how to have conversations that can answer some of those questions, or, you know, it can become part of the conversation. You know, what do you like to do for fun on the weekends? Oh, my kids are in hockey, and that's all we end up doing. So there are ways to get answers to those questions, but you want to make sure that when you're in the interview process, you're asking good questions that are applicable to the position you're hiring for. If it doesn't matter if I have kids around, it shouldn't even be a part of the conversation. The standardized candidate evaluation is really important for moving things quickly through the process, but also making sure you're leaving zero opportunity for any type of discrimination. 98% of people go into these processes not wanting to discriminate. When discrimination happens, oftentimes we don't realize it's happening, or we don't even realize we're doing it. So by having a very standardized process, you eliminate the ability for it to happen, making sure that every candidate goes through the same process, regardless of, you know, age, gender, ethnicity, background, anything. They all get a standardized process. You're also, by this standardized process, going to make sure that if you have multiple hiring managers or multiple people interviewing, you get consistent feedback. So if you end up with a position, and this isn't happening typically right now, but you end up with a position with a lot of candidates and you don't have one individual that can interview all of them, by having a standardized process, whether it's me or Bob doing the interview, we're going to have standardized results so we can compare the two. It's not about just the feeling and the connection. It's about, okay, I asked this question, you asked the exact same question. These are the two answers. Which do we like better? Also making sure that those questions are standardized and that they're trained on how to ask them, whether you're asking questions specific to the position, if you're asking critical thinking questions. There's a lot of good questions out there that can help through the interview process to make sure you're narrowing it down quickly. And again, it's all about moving those candidates through the process quickly. if you're responsible for the initial interviewing, but not the secondary interviewing, you also want to make sure that anyone involved in this hiring process, as soon as you turn on an application incoming process, so you post on Indeed, you put it on ZipRecruiter, you post it on Facebook, whenever you turn that on, you want to make absolute sure that every party that's involved in the decision-making process is available, has availability, and is ready to go. You don't want to get a candidate to the third step in the process and then they have to wait 2 weeks because someone's on vacation, or then they have to wait a week because there's no room in somebody's schedule. Your interviewing process and hiring process has to be top priority for anyone involved in the process, in order to make sure you're not losing those quality candidates. It has really become a race to see who could get the offers out fastest. We want to make sure through this hiring process that we're not running so fast to get an offer that we're hiring poor candidates. Poor candidates are worse. Hiring a bad hire is worse than not hiring somebody. So if that's nothing else that you take away from this, that is something that's key. A bad hire is worse than not hiring. So making sure you're doing your due diligence and taking the time to still get the right candidate, but making sure that you're doing it quick enough that you also don't lose the right candidate. So it's a very fine balance between getting it done and getting it done right. And then this is just a funny one. Anyone that's done interviewing or recruiting knows that 50% of the people that apply are never going to return your call. 50% of the people that sign up for a first interview are never going to show up. So this was just a good one about getting your candidate to that final interview so they can get the job. Prioritizing candidate communication. Again, this goes to the fact that we have such a tight labor pool right now. You want to make sure that if you have someone that you think is good and they're your top they're your top pick. Maybe I have four candidates that made it through the second round and now they got to go sit with the CEO. If one or two of them are, in my opinion, floating above the rest, and even if you're down to 4, you should be daily communicating with these individuals, letting them know what's happening, what the next steps are, that we are still very interested. I also prefer that my clients be very transparent and let them know, if you were to receive another offer, we would appreciate it if you let us know so we can counter, make sure that we're able to keep up the speed of your, decision-making process. And don't be afraid in the initial interview to talk to them about their decision-making process. How quickly are you looking to make a move into a new position? What's your expectation of this process? And if you already have, which you should, a clearly defined process, communicate that with them. Give them a piece of paper, send them an email that says, this is what our hiring process looks like. You're going to meet with HR. You're going to meet with the hiring manager. You're going to meet with the CEO. You should not have more than 3 interviews. Any more than 3 interviews tends to be too much. Candidates get overwhelmed. I had a client one time that had them meet individually with every person they would be working with. So if it's a team of 5, all their coworkers got to meet with them. That's too much in my opinion, especially in the job market that we're in. You want me to come in for 7 interviews for a position? I don't have time for that. They're most likely going to move on to a different organization with a simplified interviewing process. Keeping in contact with them, again, making sure that you're keeping your elite ones top of mind. I did go kind of semi-fast through this. That is all that I have on this. I think the bottom line is recruiting is not hiring. So making sure that you have a recruiting program, a recruiting plan. Make sure you loop in your marketing team, make sure your ownership is on the same level, make sure everyone understands that the branding your company does, that the messaging you're sending out to out to the world really impacts your ability to recruit. Get involved in your communities, get involved with your chambers, host events, make sure that your brand has a reputation. So when it comes time for you to hire, you have candidates coming to you, even when you're not hiring. I mean, who does not want someone to knock on their door and say, hey, Heather, next time the chamber's hiring, I would love to come work with your organization. I mean, I'm in HR for a living and I live for those moments. Yes, we do. But definitely if you if you sat through this session and you're kind of overwhelmed, the first thing I would say is to start with your interview process. The worst thing you do is post an ad and you can't get through your interviews or your resumes fast enough. And you end up with, if I post an ad on Monday and I don't have time to look at resumes till Friday, more than 75% of those people are gone. They're already gone. They've already done an interview. Half of them already have job offers. So be cautious of posting before you're ready to actually do the activities of hiring. Get everybody trained up on how to properly hire. So when you do have candidates, you're not losing good ones and you're on top of them, and then kind of back your way through it. Start with your branding, start with your marketing, looking at what we're doing as a culture. I will say one of the things I didn't mention when we were talking about culture, if your company does not have a good culture, adding more bodies to a bad culture will not make a culture good. You cannot change culture by adding humans. You need to work on the root cause of the culture. And unfortunately, it is usually top down, or it might just be bad staff and you've got to make some shifts. Start making those shifts before you just keep adding bodies, because the bodies are going to follow the culture that was created. Most people don't have one new hire that comes in and changes the whole culture of the company. So really make sure you're focusing on those kind of things. Does anyone have questions? I hope this was beneficial.
And to encourage the questions in the open forum, I'm just going to stop the recording right now. Sometimes that makes it a little bit easier on everyone to speak freely. So we'll stop that now. Thank you so much, Allison.
Yes, absolutely.